So, good afternoon. My name is Christina Geppi, and I am your teacher for biology classes and earth science. So today what I wanted to do is kind of go over some weather and climate issues. And so this will be my very first live study session, so please bear with me. Please feel free to add your input and ask any questions along the way. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing, again, the agenda for this next time is going to be kind of 15 minutes on what is climate, what is weather. And then we're actually going to go over the weather and climate activity and then any other additional questions that you might have. And then talking about study skills, in particular, kind of some note-taking techniques, and that'll be for 15 minutes. And then the final 15 minutes will be some more questions and answers if you have any regarding any of your science classes. Okay, so any questions before we get started? Okay. So just some kind of overall guidelines, I guess. Please go ahead and participate so I don't feel like I'm just talking to myself. Again, you can use your microphone on your computer by unmuting yourself or by sending a chat. And please go ahead and pay attention to your surroundings. I'm very thankful that my husband is off so he can keep our kids under control, but if I were to have my kids, I would have to mute the microphone so it didn't distract all of you at home. Also, manners are pretty important when we are discussing topics. Make sure you use kind words. And these sessions will be recorded and posted on your dashboard. So if you ever need to go over some additional information, or maybe you're not able to watch the entire session, you can go back and look at it again. So let's go ahead and talk about weather. So what is weather? So weather is the condition of the atmosphere at a specific time and place. So you can look out your window and say, hey, this is what's going on in Ohio. I see cloudy skies and I see rain. So a couple examples that I threw on the slideshow. We could say today in Chicago, it's clear skies with a high of 68 degrees. That's what we can expect in Chicago at a specific time and the place in Chicago. Also, so tomorrow in Ohio, there's a 60% chance of rain with a high of 72. Same thing, it's a specific time and a place. I like to think of weather as it gives you an idea of what type of clothes to wear for that day. I don't know about you, but I always look at the weather when I wake up in the morning to kind of see what to prepare for. I know if it's going to be a high of 80, I'm probably not going to want to wear a sweater. So kind of gives me just an idea of what to dress for. Okay, so more about weather. Weather is going to be predicted by scientists, and they are called meteorologists. And they predict the weather daily by studying conditions around us. So they are going to talk about temperature, they're going to talk about precipitation, some lightning, thunder, and cloud cover. Those are going to be the terms that these scientists are going to use when you hear a forecast. The bad thing about weather and the job of the meteorologist is the weather can change on a dime. Due to a new weather system or a front coming in. A lot of times meteorologists are wrong because it's not a constant and a completely reliable system. So if you do check the weather, the symbols on the weather map, the main ones are going to be, I'm sorry, this picture is covering some of what I wanted to talk about. I'll switch that. So you see sometimes large L's and large H's. Those are going to represent pressure systems. So a large red L is going to be a low pressure system. And that's going to create counterclockwise air movement. That's going to force air up. And it's usually going to result in a stormy day, a rainy day, some type of precipitation. Where on the other hand is if you see a large blue H, those are going to be high systems. So the air movement is going to be clockwise, and it's going to cause a sinking motion in the atmosphere. And it usually means it's going to be a beautiful day. So if you were to look at this map, so now I can bring it up and kind of enlarge it a little bit. So if you look at this map, you see a couple H's. So that just means that, again, it's going to be fairly nice in those particular parts of the country. The L's are actually along fronts. So because of their low pressure system and because they're bringing precipitation, they're going to bring in different fronts of weather patterns. So you can tell that the L's are going to bring some type of major weather. You can look at different weather maps. Again, some of them are pretty cool. These are all taken from the National Weather Organization, or NOAA. This particular picture just shows cloud cover. Again, it's pretty easy to see, but you can look at the dark gray portions of the country and you can see where the clouds are going to be. This was late last night, so about 8 o'clock last night. We could see clouds in the southeast and then up in the Midwest. So again, this is another type of map. Again, the weather systems will bring in different types of weather patterns, as well as meteorologists will record their data showing you on different maps. So this is just going to show you the precipitation, the probability of precipitation. So if we look back at this cloud cover map, again, we can see that the clouds are around the southeast. And if we look at the precipitation right along that outer band of clouds, they're going to get some rain. And just like in the western states, you can see that there's going to be cloud cover up there. They are probably getting a little bit of snow by now. Up in the mountains, could be getting some snow. Again, just some precipitation. This is, again, just an example of the map, a map showing different temperatures. So you can see that the greens are, using the key, the greens are about 80 degrees. The blues start to be 70. Purple, dark blue is going to get into the 50s, lower 40 or higher 40s. And then if you look over here, the pale yellow, again, is going to be pretty chilly. So I found this map, and this brings up a couple questions that I have for you. So if we look at these purple blocks, these are actually warnings for those people in those states, as well as this area right here. Okay, so keeping that in mind, this is what the weather.gov website said. So heavy rainfall will continue through midweek from the lower Mississippi Valley to the mid-Atlantic. Elevated to critical fire weather threat continues across the Central Great Basin and the Central Rockies. and there's an elevated fire risk from southwestern Oregon to northern California. Record river flooding will continue in portions of the Midwest and the Carolinas. So going back to this map, so again, the kind of like the magenta colors are going to be fire warnings, as well as down here kind of flood warnings. My question is, why are fire warnings important to weather? Why would they devote a map to different warnings, one of them being fire warnings? Okay, good. Thank you, Rachel. So people safety, there's going to be smoke in the wind. Exactly. So what that tells us is, for sure, there's going to be a lot of smoke in the atmosphere. And because of that, people are going to have a harder time breathing, being outside. It's also telling us that it's pretty dry in those areas, which they could really stand some precipitation. So, hi, Ricky. Thank you for joining us. So just some personal information about me. So I am originally from Ohio, and my husband and I moved out to Idaho, so right around, right underneath my cursor. And we lived out there for 10 years. Both of my sons were born out there, and I taught high school out there. And I do know from personal experience that this is kind of like the quote unquote fire season, where the forest systems are starting fires because of just that time of year. And then a lot of times they do have a strong warning, and they do sometimes get out of control. Hi, Erica. Thank you for joining. All right, we're just finishing up with weather. Any questions about weather? Again, I like to think weather as it tells me how to dress. It tells you what you need to prepare for the day. So if we look at climate, climate is a little bit different. Climate is telling us how the atmosphere behaves over a long period of time. So for example, this time in Ohio, we can expect cooler temperatures. Everybody likes the fall temperatures in Ohio. Excuse me. And we know that from looking at past weather data. In the months of June, July, and August, we Ohioans can expect hot temperatures and lots of sun. Again, looking at prior years of weather and comparing and looking at the patterns. So in the months of, again, using personal experience, in the months of October through March, Idahoans can expect cold and lots of snow. So we were kind of high up in the mountains, and they have record fall recorded on, I believe, every single calendar date. The locals like to tell that there was snow at the 4th of July parade. So you never know. All right, so like I said, weather tells us what type of clothes to wear for the day. The climate gives us an idea of what type of clothes to buy, what type of clothes that you would need in your closet. For example, if you lived in Hawaii, based on the climate of Hawaii, you're not gonna have a lot of wool sweaters in your closet, most likely. Knowing the climate of Ohio, we're going to have a little bit of everything. It can get pretty hot. It can get kind of cold. So climate is kind of like the long-term version of weather. Yes, it is. Climate is taking all of the past weather data and putting it all together. Okay. So when we are looking at climate, we're looking at patterns. So on September 24th, 20 years ago, was it a similar temperature and a similar weather pattern as it is today? Okay, so we're going to look at recorded data. We're going to look at statistics. And some of those terms are going to be, total precipitation. How much rainfall does an area get? We're going to look at relative humidity and then average precipitation based on daily, monthly, and yearly precipitation based on an area. And so again, looking at a general pattern or a trend of weather over a period of time. So I have a map right here on this slide, and then I copied the same map. So this is average temperature trends, and you can see the dates, August 1988 to 2017. What can we see from this map? How would we read this map? Again, feel free to unmute yourself and actually talk, or feel free to type a chat message. That would be excellent. If you can read this map, why is this map important? What can we see from it? So if we look, okay, so yes, very good, thank you. So we can look at this map and see how the temperature has increased or decreased over the past 30 years. And this would give us a type of climate. So if we look at Texas, it gives us the trends, the temperature trends of the state of Texas. There's faint blue coloring in like Minnesota and North and South Dakota. That's gonna, again, tell us the different trends, how it's increased or decreased. Yes, thank you, Rachel. So another one, this is going to be precipitation trends. What do we see here? What can we say about the United States, about their rainfall or precipitation trends? Sometimes it's hard to read maps a little bit. So if we look, okay, if we look down here and look at our key, the darker kind of turquoise color is going to represent the most precipitation. So if I look at that, that means this area right here is going to have received the most precipitation. So I'm going to guess that it's a fairly wet area of the country. And it kind of goes up a little bit following this route. And again, pretty damp, wet trends over the past 30 years. If we look at Arizona and New Mexico, not much rain, unfortunately. And because of that, the climate of those two states, we know are pretty dry. And various kind of hits and misses, kind of a good coloration of wet and dry areas for the past 30 years. Okay. So to kind of summarize those few slides, so weather and climate. Again, my understanding of weather is if I'm going to look at the weather in the morning, then that's going to tell me what to wear. If I know that it's going to be a high of 55, I'm probably not going to want to wear shorts. And climate is going to tell me what type of clothes to have in my closet, what type of clothes to buy. If I live in Texas, I might not want to wear or own a lot of heavy duty clothes. Okay. And taking some information from the lesson, it said that weather is what you get daily and climate is what you expect. So again, for September in Ohio, we can expect cooler fall-like temperatures, but then weather is what we get daily. Last week in Ohio, it was fairly hot, in the 80s. It's not really what we expect in September, but that's what we got. So weather is what we get, climate is what you expect. Any questions so far? Again, I appreciate all of you being here with us today. So why is this important? So climate is going to be important because, again, looking at patterns, looking at trends, we can see climate change. Climate change is a cyclical process, meaning that it cycles and repeats itself. So we're going to have high trends, and we're going to have low trends. We're going to have high trends and then low trends. So when talking about climate change, there's some climate change that actually is expected and it's normal. But scientists are not exactly worried about the change itself, but the rate. How fast is that climate changing happening? So the impacts of climate change they're going to affect the crop yields, sea levels, precipitation, and the health of humans and animals. How? How is climate change going to affect or impact those things? What type of examples could you think of? So if we got a increase in precipitation in the desert regions, how would that affect the climate or the crop yields or the health of those individuals? Any ideas? Well, okay, so again, talking about personal experience, being from Ohio, Idaho, they do grow a lot of potatoes. That is real. And where my husband and I lived, it was considered a desert area. So if the climate changed and there was more precipitation, and it wasn't so much of a desert area, probably would be a little bit more difficult to grow potatoes in that particular location. Sea levels, what could happen to the sea levels that would be detrimental? If the climate changed and sea levels rose, a lot of people would lose their homes. We would lose coastal areas. Health of animals and humans. Again, some of your activities have talked about abiotic and biotic factors. Your abiotic factors could definitely affect your biotic factors by causing them to adapt or causing them to lose a lot of their organisms. So I found an interesting little video that I'd like to show for you. It's not super long, it's just a couple minutes, but it kind of sums up what we have been talking about.
Human activities, from pollution to overpopulation, are driving up the Earth's...
Uh-oh. Let's try that again.
Human activities, from pollution to overpopulation, are driving up the Earth's temperature and fundamentally changing the world around us.
I hope you guys can see and hear this.
The main cause is a phenomenon known as the greenhouse effect. Gases in the atmosphere, such as water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and chlorofluorocarbons, let the sun's light in, but keep some of the heat from escaping, like the glass walls of a greenhouse. The more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the more heat gets trapped, strengthening the greenhouse effect and increasing the Earth's temperature. Human activities, like the burning of fossil fuels, have increased the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere by more than a third since the Industrial Revolution. The rapid increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere has warmed the planet at an alarming rate. While Earth's climate has fluctuated in the past, atmospheric carbon dioxide hasn't reached today's levels in hundreds of thousands of years. Climate change has consequences for our oceans, our weather, our food sources, and our health. Ice sheets, such as Greenland and Antarctica, are melting. The extra water that was once held in glaciers causes sea levels to rise and spills out of the oceans, flooding coastal regions. Warmer temperatures also make weather more extreme. This means not only more intense major storms, floods, and heavy snowfall, but also longer and more frequent droughts. These changes in weather pose challenges. Growing crops becomes more difficult. The areas where plants and animals can live shift, and water supplies are diminished. In addition to creating new agricultural challenges, climate change can directly affect people's physical health. In urban areas, the warmer atmosphere creates an environment that traps and increases the amount of smog. This is because smog contains ozone particles, which increase rapidly at higher temperatures. Exposure to higher levels of smog can cause health problems such as asthma, heart disease, and lung cancer. While the rapid rate of climate change is caused by humans, humans are also the ones who can combat it. If we work to replace fossil fuels with renewable energy sources like solar and wind, which don't produce greenhouse gas emissions, we might still be able to prevent some of the worst effects of climate change.
All right. I know that climate change and global warming can kind of sometimes strike up in heated discussion, but I just wanted to kind of give you the facts. So are there any questions about the information that I just shared and went over with you?
Okay. I need to look at that then. Remind me, was it Recite?
Okay, so let's go ahead and start on the activity 1.4.1, the weather and climate activity. So weather can change from minute to minute. Is that true or is it false? What do we think? Weather can change from minute to minute. So the answer is true. It is indeed true. Again, weather can change due to the systems coming in or the fronts that are moving in or across the nation. Number 2, weather refers to the state of the atmosphere, A, over a short period of time, B, at a specific time and place, C, over a long period of time, or D, at a specific temperature. Any ideas? So weather is going to refer to the state of the atmosphere at a specific time and place. Remember, the weather for Ohio is going to be a lot different than, say, California, depending on where they are, but it's probably not going to be the same. So number 3, temperature, cloud cover, and thunder are all examples of A, storms, B, weather, C, climate, or D, barometric pressure. What do we think? Temperature, cloud cover, and thunder. They could be storms. However, there's a much better answer. Much better answer would be weather. So temperature, cloud cover, and thunder are all examples of weather. Those are examples that are happening right now. Number 4, an area's general pattern of weather observed over a period of time is called season, storms, weather, or D, climate. What do we think? The general pattern of weather is going to be D, climate. Not season. It's pretty amazing to think of people, some areas of the country don't experience seasons like people in Ohio do. So it's pretty interesting. So the general pattern of weather is going to be D, climate. And finally, number 5, changes in climate can negatively affect A, forest, B, crop yields, C, water supplies, or D, all of the above. Climate change can affect what? Okay, changes in climate can negatively affect all of those things. Forests, crop yields, water supplies, animals, humans, so all of those would definitely be affected by climate change. Any questions so far? Okay. Moving on to a skill that I thought would be pretty important. So this spelled incorrectly, sorry. Okay. Study skills, this is going off of the Cornell note-taking method. And there are 5 R's to note-taking. And when we look at this box, think of it as your sheet of paper. So this particular side is going to be your Q column, and that's going to be filled in after your class. So this larger area is going to be your note-taking area. That's where you're going to record the information from the class, the lecture, the meeting, okay, as fully and as legible as possible. And then the bottom portion of the sheet of paper are going to be your summary, where you're going to sum up your notes in a sentence or 2, just a quick summary, preferably in your own words, okay? So again, using a large section for the bulk of the information, this column going back and kind of matching it with key terms and kind of using cues, and then writing a sentence or 2 summary. So there are 5 R's that different organizations use for this method. The first one is going to be record. Record is going to be, again, where you're going to write down all the important information during the class or the meeting. You need to make sure that it's legible, for one, because you need to be able to read it for the next couple hours, but also if you can't read it, it's going to be difficult to study when it comes to test time. The second R is going to be reduce. So this is going to be where you use your cue column, so your left side of the paper. You're going to go back and you're going to summarize the information. This is where you can draw pictures. If there's a key concept or a vocabulary word, drawing pictures helps a lot. Or you can create a bulleted list in that area as well. The third R is going to be recite. Reciting information is pretty important way to get it stuck in your memory, and it's a great way to study. A couple of things: you don't want to look at your notes. You want to make sure that you can say them in your own words without looking at your notes. It kind of defeats the purpose of reciting. Okay, the next R is going to be reflect. So you're going to look at the information and you're going to actually think about it and kind of analyze. If you have any questions, write them down. A great way to get your questions answered is to write them down and then take them to class the next period and actually get your questions answered. This would be an excellent way to tie new information to past experiences or even prior knowledge. For example, if you experienced a certain weather condition, that could be something that you could remember. That was at that specific time, specific place. I remember being caught in the, for example, tornado. That doesn't happen for long periods of time. That's quick. That's weather. Okay, so just kind of talking about relating that new information to stuff that you already have in your brain is a good way to get it stuck in your head. And then finally, reviewing. If you take notes during the day, review them at night, 5-10 minutes every night. It's going to make your job of studying for the exam or the test so much easier because you won't have to cram. You won't have to spend hours and hours studying because you've been reviewing it all week. Okay. I've got another video just because I like how they write the 4 or the 5 R's. We're not going to watch the entire thing, but I did appreciate how they made it made this visual a little bit. There we go. Okay. So again, recording the information, what you think is meaningful, important facts, and then going back and reducing it or summarizing it, writing down questions and cues, reciting it, kind of quizzing yourself or talking about your notes to another person is very helpful. Reflecting, again, kind of matching it to what you already know or past experiences, and then reviewing it, just reading over your notes 5, 10, 15 minutes after class is going to help you a lot. Okay. Oops, sorry. All right. My sites. Are there any questions? Again, if you miss any information, this session was recorded and it'll be put on your dashboard. So you can always go back and look at it again, maybe if you missed something or need additional information. Make sure you email me or send me a chat because I'm here to help you be successful. That's my job. So yeah. Thank you again for joining me on my very first live session. I appreciate you being a good audience. And if there are no questions, I will, just 1 second. Oh, you are very welcome. And thank you for, again, joining me. And have a wonderful rest of your day. And let me know what I can do to make sure that you are successful.